Hi there. If you're a woman in your late 30s and up, this conversation is for you. Today, I'm going to talk about something that we don't like to talk about because maybe talking about it will make it real. And that topic is aging, getting older. Because aging is such a strange experience. I mean, physically, things begin to change, noticeable change. But internally, you still feel like yourself. And I think that what makes aging so difficult for so many people, especially for women, is because from a very young age, we're conditioned to associate youth with value, right? I mean, it's everywhere. Youth means beauty, relevance, energy, visibility, desirability. And aging becomes associated with becoming less attractive, less desirable, less important, less capable, right? I mean, we can't deny it. It's out there. So, of course, people fear aging because we've been taught to. So, it isn't just the physical changes themselves, it's the meaning that our society has attached to them, especially when it comes to the words nobody, not even your doctor sometimes, seems comfortable saying out loud. And perimenopause can start as early as 35. And society has made menopause sound like this horrible thing that happens to women. Like one day we're just going to wake up and become moody, irrational, emotional, forgetful, like we're losing it and we're crazy. And while there are real emotional and cognitive shifts that happen, let me share with you a little bit of my story. And for those of you who don't know me, my name is Dr. Maria Grace. I'm a psychotherapist who specializes in trauma and befriending our fear. And I have always been very active. Movement has always been a part of who I am, whether it's dancing or running, training, doing Spartan races with my sisters, doing Kung Fu with my boys. Being able to be physically active is my way of grounding myself. I, all my life, I have trusted my body. I felt very grounded to it. So when I started feeling more fatigued, I knew something was off. And there was this moment, one particular moment. I was training one night in Kung Fu, martial arts, and my shifu was teaching a form where I had to do a jump. And for the life of me, I couldn't get myself to do it. So for some reason, I had forgotten how to jump. And I know that sounds so ridiculous, right? But I am so serious. In my mind, I knew exactly what I wanted my body to do. But for some reason, my body just wouldn't respond the same way it used to. It felt out of sync, like my brain and my body weren't communicating properly anymore. And that was the moment it really hit me because I had never felt that disconnected from my own body. And honestly, I was sad and a little scared at the same time because when you've spent your whole life feeling at home in your body and trusting your body, you immediately notice when something feels off, right? And I know it's different for everyone. Some women may experience other symptoms, such as forgetting words in the middle of sentences. Maybe you have trouble hearing. Maybe you're walking into rooms and forgetting why you went in there, losing your balance, skin irritations. I mean, these can be little things, but enough little things that eventually you start questioning yourself. Because what we hear so much about when it comes to perimenopause is hot flashes, right? And maybe mood swings. And that's it. But never what's really happening. And part of what's really happening is that your hormones, especially estrogen, it starts to decline. And estrogen don't just affect your body, they regulate your brain. It affects your memory, your mood, your focus, your energy, your sleep. And it helps with emotional regulation, even coordination and balance. So, your brain during perimenopause is going through a transition. This is a whole brain and whole body transition. And estrogen is deeply connected to the brain. So, why do many women not know about this? Right? We don't talk about it enough to even prepare ourselves for this phase in our lives. Because this is not new. Menopause in general has been deeply stigmatized for a very long time. It's been framed as this point where a woman is somehow declining, losing something, becoming less. But when you look at the history, there's actually been very little research focused on women's hormonal health. And for decades, most of the medical understanding we had wasn't even centered on women's lived experiences. Usually it's research on men, but here we are, it's 2026, and we're just starting to have real conversation about something women have been going through forever. So, of course, it feels confusing. Of course, it feels isolating because no one really gave us a framework to understand it. So, when a woman says, I'm not feeling like myself, she is not being dramatic. Her brain is adapting to a real biological shift. And I think this is where we need to change the conversation because the problem is it's not menopause itself. The problem is that women have been given fear and shame and silence instead of education, language, and support. And and I'm not going to pretend that the symptoms are easy, right? They're not. I mean, try running a half marathon while struggling with perimenopause. But seriously, as difficult and as uncomfortable as this phase can be, there are actually three things about this experience that have genuinely changed me in ways I didn't expect. And I had to really reflect on this. And the first is this: it forces you to become more aware of yourself in ways most people never really have to, right? And one of the biggest things it made me realize was how disconnected most of us are from our bodies until something forces us to finally pay attention. For most of our lives, we move through the world expecting our bodies to just keep up with us, right? We push harder, push through exhaustion, we ignore the stress, we override what we're feeling to have that gain, right? But this phase in our lives has a way of forcing us to slow down long enough to really pay attention, to notice what gives you energy, to notice what drains you, to understand what your body has been trying to communicate for years. And honestly, there's something really grounding about finally learning how to listen to your body. Number two, you realize you actually deserve support. And I really want women to hear this part. You do not have to silently suffer through this like many women have done in the past. There are treatments available. There are tools now. There are ways to support your brain and body through this transition. There are more research being done by women and studies being done on women for women, not on men, for women. For some women, using hormone replacement therapy can be life changing. For others, Cognitive behavioral therapy can really help with the anxiety, the emotional shifts, and the way we relate psychologically to what's happening. Really understanding the sensations and the emotions in our body is so helpful. There's also nervous system work, sleep support, strength training, nutrition, stress reduction. There are options. And I think that's important to know because many women have spent years believing they just have to tolerate feeling miserable and disconnected from themselves. And you don't. There are support that exists, and understanding what's happening removes so much of the fear and the uncertainties. And this third one has probably been the hardest for me because I've always been someone who pushes through things, but eventually your body starts asking something different from you. And it forces you to really think about who you are underneath all that productivity and pressure. There is a grief that comes with realizing you can't keep relating to yourself the same way you always have. Because for a long time, the way many of us survive is by becoming who we think we need to be. We need to be strong. We need to be capable. We need to be productive. We need to be needed. And somewhere along the way, we get so used to performing being strong for others that we lose touch with ourselves underneath all of that, all of the roles that we carry. So when your body suddenly stops responding the way it used to, maybe you're not as fast, not as energetic, you can't jump as high. It doesn't just challenge your routine, it challenges your identity. And maybe that's why this phase can feel so hard, right? Because it forces you to meet yourself without all the things you used to rely on to define your worth. And I found myself asking if I'm not constantly performing or pushing or producing, then who am I? And I think there's something really powerful about sitting with that question because maybe I'm not here to constantly prove who I am. Maybe I'm not here to constantly push. Maybe I'm here to understand who I am without the pressure to perform it. What if this is the time to learn how to be? And that can feel uncomfortable if you're so used to being productive. Maybe this phase of life isn't asking us to become less of ourselves. Maybe it's asking us to stop abandoning ourselves just to keep up with who we thought we had to be. And maybe that's where the value is during this phase of our journey. It's not becoming someone new. We're finally allowing ourselves to be fully human. I think I'll end there. And if this resonates at all, I want you to know you're not alone. Until next time.